Hello friends, welcome to the MARE Podcast. Before we get started, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget that you can find more about the MARE project at www.marehamburg.com, and you can support the project and this podcast through Patreon. All the links are in the description. Enjoy!
Hello there. General Kenobi.
Oh, yes, that's how you start a podcast. This is how you start a podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of MARE. Today, depends. I guess it's not a live recording. I think it's afternoon in the UK, and it must be afternoon in Hamburg as well. Welcome, Alex. The last remaining member of the old MARE committee is finally here to talk to us. What took you so long?
Hi. Thank you for having me. What took me so long? I don't know, to be honest. It was just a very busy time.
A very busy time. What are you doing? And it's a busy time.
Well, first of all, I was on a small vacational trip, so very busy. No.
Ooh, wait, where? Where did you go?
I went to Copenhagen to see the Glyptothek, the Carlsberg Glyptothek.
Ooh, what's that? Is it a museum?
Yeah, it's the museum in Copenhagen, and they have a lot of statues there, and I have a small fable for statues, so I just love to go there.
Is it archaeological museum or is it like modern statues?
Well, it has both. It has some modern
Interesting.
stuff from the 18th and 19th century, which I didn't look at, and a lot of antiquities, and it's a splendid collection. I recommend everyone to go there who is interested in Roman and Greek sculpture.
Okay. Interesting. So first question, what's your favorite sculpture and why?
My favorite sculpture? Oh, that's a very good question. I would go with Laocoon.
What is that?
The Laocoon is a statue group which is now in the Vatican museums, and it depicts a scene from the Trojan War, from the cycle of the Trojan War. And he's a priest, and he is being killed by snakes together with his sons. It's Hellenistic, most probably. Let's not go into detail with that because the dating is a bit difficult. But it's sometime.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Let's say sometime between 200 BC to 180. Let's put it like that. And
Yeah. Let's know a bit. I know it's the time after Alexander the Great and before the Roman conquest. Vaguely depends on where you are in the world.
exactly.
Vaguely. Right. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Continue. Why don't I remember? Do I know this? Is it like super famous and I'm just not picturing it right now?
I mean, most people would know it who are like looking at statues a lot. I mean, it's one of the most famous groups in the world, I would say. You should really look into it. It's full of pathos. It has a lot of emotion. It has this typical Hellenistic attributes of showing not only the beautiful but also the ugly, and it has so much energy, and the scenery, which is static but also not static. It's just a wonderful piece of art. Like, I love it so much.
Maybe I should look into it. Maybe I know it, but I'm just is it that one where the priest is like naked and he has his arms wide open? Is it that one?
Exactly.
I think I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah.
He's naked. He
Is
has
that
his
in the
arms away
Vatican?
from him. Yeah, it's in the Vatican, and he's holding one snake with his arm away. The other one is biting in his side, and his sons are standing next to him, trying to get rid of the snakes.
Oh yeah. I know what what you're talking about. Yes. Oh, it's indeed a very nice sculpture, and it's a famous one. You're right.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about sculptures for a minute? That's super interesting. You mentioned Hellenistic sculptures that they will show like the beautiful and the ugly and stuff like that. In contrast to what? Do you want to elaborate on the other time periods when it comes to sculpturing?
Well, we can do that briefly. Like before in classical times, you have more this idealistic statues, which show like figures, gods, athletes, whatsoever, in a very ideal way. So perfect muscles, the perfect body ideals. And they also don't have like features on the face that make them unique, right? So they are, as I said, idealistic. They are ageless. They are perfect in every sense, let's say. So this like changes over time, and in this period of Hellenism, like 330 BC to, well, let's go with 31 with
That's the dating of
BC.
the Eastern Mediterranean, right? The Battle of
Yeah,
Actium. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, we could argue 29, but let's say around 30 BC.
Yeah, sure.
You have this, what I said before, like this realism in, and also everyday life scenes of, for example, a drunk woman sitting on the floor holding a vessel, or you have an old fisherman who is very not so beautiful to look at, let's be honest, but the craftsmanship is amazing. And I really love this change from this idealistic to this full emotional pathos-laden way of depicting scenes.
Interesting. So you think you prefer Hellenistics, obviously, rather than classical statues. Well, what you mentioned is an important distinction that I think people would find useful, especially when you're walking into a museum, for example, and you see statues, and you can kind of separate them, date them based on what they show, because as you said, classical statues are idealistic, the masculine, they're perfect, they're in amazing stances, while Hellenistic are more like realistic. But how did you end up talking about statues? Anyway, do you want to talk to us about what are you doing in your research? Because that's where we started. We talked about your research.
Exactly. Yeah, let's say we did a small vacation now with statues.
Well, as you did in Copenhagen, and then
Yes,
you
I
said,
did.
I'm very busy, and I asked, what are you doing? So what are you doing?
Yeah, so right now I'm writing my PhD at the University of Hamburg, and I'm working on the harbours on the coast of Sicily after the First and Second Punic Wars.
Interesting. So the Punic Wars, they are the wars between Rome and Carthage. And I know that very well because of the Oversimplified series, because I'm by no means expert on like Roman history, but those videos are absolutely crucial to my well-being. So the harbours between the First and the Second Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were not very successful for Rome, right? They cost Rome a lot of men and resources and time and investment, right?
Well, yes, they were very expensive to Rome, not only money-wise, but also if you see at the casualties, like pretty heavy casualties, especially when you look at the fleets of Rome in the First Punic War. Um, but I would say they were very successful. I mean, you have Rome on the one side, the upcoming young nation, let's call it nation right now to make it easier, against Carthage, this old city, which is super powerful, is ruling the sea. And what Rome does in the course of these two wars, they fight Carthage. Carthage is like in the advantage, but still Rome somehow manages, because they're so stubborn and full of fire, to beat Carthage. And in the end, they gain control over the Western Mediterranean, which is a starting point for the Roman Empire, which, a few hundred years later is covering all the Mediterranean and more, even England. I mean, or parts
Oh
of
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think was it the third? No, it was yes, it was a third Punic War when the chancellors said the famous line "Carthago delenda est," right?
Yes, I mean,
Was it the third? But you work on the second.
I work on first and second. I mean, it was Cato the Elder, if I remember correctly, who ended all his speeches with Ceterum censeo Carthaginem esse delendam. And by the way, I'm of the opinion that Carthage should be destroyed. And this Carthago delenda est is, of course, after the Third War, when they, destroyed it. So Carthage is no more.
Amazing. So Sicily, between the First and the Second Punic Wars, Sicily belongs to Carthage and Rome, or does it belong to one or the other? I imagine after the war belongs to Rome. But...
Well, yes. So before let's say what is before, shortly, so to have some context. So the island is divided by Greek cities like Syracuse, who have a big territory in the eastern part, and also some Carthaginian thresholds, like Lilybaeum, for example, like the today Marsala on the western part. And after the First War, most of the island belonged to Rome. Like, they had a really good ally, like Syracuse, so Syracuse could stay like independent after the First War. But the remaining part of the island, because of the contract that Carthage and Rome made, belonged to Rome now.
Interesting. So the island is kind of separated into cities, the city-state model kind of thing, or no?
Well, it was. Let's say, so we have some cities who belong to Carthage, right? We have Lilybaeum, we have Drepana, today's Trapani, we have Panormus, Palermo. We have Selinunte, right? So these cities all are in the sphere or in the direct possession of the Punic rule. But yeah, the other big player on this island is then Syracuse, like a big polis with a big hinterland, also with cities in their like area which they have control over. So, I mean, the Greek city-state distribution is maybe even a bit earlier, like 5th century before Christ, 4th century before Christ. You have more independent cities, and I mean, it changes a lot. It's like very dynamic power systems. So it's
Yeah. I'm not necessarily talking like I'm not necessarily referring to the Greekness of Sicily. I'm just trying to, because I honestly don't know things about Sicily. I'm trying to understand kind of how the political system worked on the island. So it's similar to the Greek city-state model, but that does not necessarily mean that during the Punic Wars, Sicily was Greek by any means.
I mean, some cities had some Greek identity, right? But it was quite divided between Carthage, like Punic, and Greek. And after the war, we have all this Roman influence coming, but still, you have these identities, right?
Oh yeah, and there is a conversation that I have been postponing to have with somebody, because I don't know where this goes, but because it's a huge topic in archaeology of how much we use ethnic names to label finds, and how much this can be very confusing at the end of the day. Nowadays that we have so much data, I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel like today that we have so much data in terms of material evidence, for example, pottery, metal finds, blah, 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 blah. And we label them as Greek or Punic or, I don't know, Phoenician or whatever you want to call it. And we find something that doesn't belong to either, or that belongs to it kind of, because human nature, right, is not staying the same throughout the centuries. Then we get into this confusing discussion about Greekness or Punicness, and what does that mean? And probably the people who lived in Sicily didn't, maybe, I don't know, during the Punic Wars didn't call themselves, oh yes, we're Greeks, of course, we have Greek culture. They considered their culture their own, but we've kind of imprinted ethnic names on. I don't know if you have an opinion on it, but it was something I was kind of thinking about as you were talking.
I mean, it's a really good question. Like, it's a big discussion, as you said. I think giving these ethnic names to these find categories or these artifacts helps us, like, putting it in categories, making it easier for us to work on, to somehow put it in some direction where it could belong. In the same time, or at the same time, it can be difficult because, as you said, maybe they don't feel like that, or there's a mixture of cultures, let's say. I mean, that's also a phenomenon that happens then on Sicily, right? You have these cities which are now under Roman rule, and still the majority of inscriptions and so on is like in Greek, right? So, or many inscriptions are in Greek, let's say. And still you also find some Punic things after the wars, right? So, yeah, what is it now? Is it Roman because it's under Roman rule? Is it Roman Punic? Is it only Punic? But Punic is in the like period before, so it's very difficult. It's a great question.
Oh yeah, just to be clear, I'm not opposing like categorization of finds. I'm not, by all means, I'm not against that. But it was just this thought that maybe we could use other terms like, I don't know, their color or their the material they were built or their shape or something else instead of like ethnic. But it's a whole other conversation. Let's run it back. Let's go back to the Sicilian harbors between the Punic Wars. So Sicily is an island. And an island means that it's a piece of land surrounded by sea, and it usually leaves off the sea. Is this the case for Sicily? I think it is, right?
I mean, the case is it is an island, that I can say for sure in this stage.
We are quality content here. Yes. We have discovered that Sicily is an island. Yep.
Perfect. Like one of the main sources of let's say income is agriculture for Sicily. Like Sicily has very fertile lands, or had, like still, but let's begin the past now. Had very fertile lands which were very beneficent for agriculture, a lot of goods. I mean, you can see also in that why it was so important for Rome to seize control over the island. So they had a steady supply of corn, right? So, like for example, in the first time of after the Romans took over, you have a tithe which had to be paid to Rome in the shape of corn. So you can see, okay, the first what we want is not money, we want corn. We need to feed people. But yes, like of course you also live off the sea, right? I haven't looked into that yet, how much like fishing is like a big supply of food, but
Would you say that they are like maritime oriented people?
I
or
mean,
not really?
Depends on where you look. Like if you look into the center of the island, you have mountains, you have some plateaus and so on. I wouldn't say these people are particularly like maritime oriented. But then on the other hand, if you look at the coast, you have cities like Selinund, you have Syracuse, Panormus, Lilybeo. And these are very much maritime oriented because also of trade. So, I mean, Syracuse, super powerful, rich city, big trading post, because also Sicily lies at a very strategic point in the Mediterranean. If you look on the map, it's like dividing west and east. So most routes you have like lead through Sicily. So all the roads lead to Rome, but all the sea routes go past Sicily, let's say.
Good one. And with that said, that means that their harbors were very, very important, right? So give it to me. Talk to us about harbors, whatever you can say about the harbors of Sicily between the Punic Wars.
I mean, yes, they had big and important harbors. What can I tell you about the harbors? Well, it's in some cases a bit difficult because some of the harbors are silted up, like for example, Selinund, like where we think the harbors were, there's now no water, there's land. Very difficult to reconstruct how the harbors look. But if you look at other cities, for example, Syracuse and Lilybaeum, you even have written sources who tell you, for example, that many ships came to this harbor. For example, in the First Punic War, we have like something from Polybius who writes that I think it was 1,200 ships went to Syracuse. Half of them were taken to Lilybaeon. Like, it's a huge amount of ships. I mean,
Wow.
you can't take every word for granted, right? It's, of course, a style.
Yeah, but still.
It gives you an idea that apparently there was a big harbor. Also for Lilybaeon, you have these reports of about Scipio when he went over to attack Carthage. That he started from there, and that like they tell you how many ships were there, and it's also written the harbor couldn't take all of the ships, but still, it seemed like the harbor could like work with all these ships, right? Some of them could make fast, some of them could anchor somewhere. So it gives you an idea about how big and important they were. And the last example about harbors I want to say is like Panormos. Panormos, Greek Panormos, the all harbor, the great harbor, which apparently was the best harbor on the island, according to some ancient sources. I mean, it shows you that harbors had a very high importance for the island, that it's even in some names.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. So a lot of work that can be done on those harbors. And I imagine if some of them are sealed, they might be easier to get to because you have to excavate and not really dive. I don't know.
Well, it's both things have their advantages and disadvantages, let's say. The thing is, for example, right now in Selinund, drill core soundings are done. So to reconstruct how deep is the harbor basin, where is the harbor basin, was it a harbor basin, and then try to find hints on where to look for structures. So in some sense, it might be easier on the paper when you read it, but it's a huge area. I mean, I was lucky enough to work in Selinund now for 3 campaigns, like doing the drillings or helping with the drillings. It's a huge area, and it's really hard to reconstruct how it looked back then. So then you might think, oh, so it must be easier on the coast. And then you look at Lilybaeon, like Marsala, and we have some ideas where the harbors are. Like Julius Schmid did in the 60s some analysis with the aerial photographs. And he said, okay, you can see something which looks like a mole, so there should be a harbor. Then here in the lagoon, it also looks like it could be. And yeah, but we don't have proof that exactly there were the harbors. So Sicily still needs a lot of work, I would say, because for many cities where we know there were big harbors, important harbors, we don't know yet where exactly and how they looked like. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's driving you crazy.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. So how did you get into researching Sicily? How did that come along?
Like when I did my bachelor's degree, or in my bachelor's, my professor asked me.
Where did you do your bachelor's? Sorry.
I did it in Hamburg.
Okay,
Also,
so you're a Hamburg like loyal.
I'm very loyal to my city. I'm from here, so it somehow came to be that I stayed most of my time in Hamburg. And yeah, so my professor, when I did my bachelor's in Hamburg, asked me if I would like to participate in a campaign in Marsala, like Lilybaeon, to do some geophysical works there. And I went to this place and was like, "Wow, this is great. This is so beautiful. I love it." So that was my first contact to Sicily. And in my master's, which I also did in Hamburg, I did an Erasmus at Palermo, and I had some really cool professors who really showed me how much there is in Sicily. Like what do we have, what kind of cities. And I went to many places during my Erasmus already and saw it, and I thought, I really want to work on this island. And yeah, when I spoke with my supervisor about what could I do, what kind of topic, she said, I mean, harbors of Sicily would be a topic. And I said, yeah, that's also what I thought. So
It was love at first sight. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Oh yeah, you too. So how is doing field work in Sicily? Is it like a big team, or because you said geophysical, I imagine it's a handful of people, or is it like a big team doing stuff?
like in Lillibern, Masala, it's not a big team. We were like 4 people, and we did some work with the total station, and with the GPS and so on. To like the University of Hamburg has a project together with the Università degli Studi di Palermo, to create a digital map of the park, an archaeological map. So you didn't need that many people for the field work. Selinund, on the other hand, in general needs a lot more people because there's excavation, there's drilling. So in the drilling team, we were like 3 people in the field, and we had 2 to 3 people in the depot working on the course. So also a small team, but then again, you have all the people from the excavation, so it becomes quite a big team. And yeah.
So what do you like working with? Do you prefer working with a geophysical data or with the like more traditional like rocks and stones and ceramics kind of thing?
I don't like to narrow myself down on something.
Oh yeah, that's how it
I love everything about field work. Like in everything I can find something positive. I have some parts which I like very much. Some I like less, of course, it's always like that. But I think in every kind of field work or depot work, you get certain information which are all crucial to the big picture. So, of course, I love to work in the field. I love to be in the trench, right? Breaking my back in the heat of Sicily.
I
I
love
love
the
it.
smell of mud. I love the dust. I love everything about it. Oh yeah, romanticizing the places you research. It's I mean, as old as time itself. So how did you how did you get into archaeology in general? Because you said you did a bachelor's and then you went into a master's and now you're doing a PhD. And are you in the final years of your PhD, right?
Well,
That was a
let's.
big, big breath. Oh my god,
No, I was
that was
thinking
huge.
about no, let's start how I came to archaeology. So let's go chronologically. So before I started studying, I did job training. After school, I went to do Ausbildung. It's called in Germany. It's like you work and you go to school at the same time. And I was working in shipping. I was like a shipping agent, tanker operator, and broker. And at one point, I thought it's not fulfilling. I don't like the work anymore. I feel a bit, I should do something else with my life. So I was 25 and I decided I go studying. So, and then I thought, well, what do you want to study? And I thought something with history or archaeology, because since school, I really loved history. I had this teacher, Herr Korte, and he spoke about the Battle of the Spartans at the Thermopyles, and it stuck in my head forever. And so I decided on archaeology, and it was a great decision. As you could hear, maybe I love it. And well, now in the PhD, I'm now officially 2 years in. Let's say I'm at the half time, I would say. I still need, I think, 2 years, because I didn't have like opportunities like others, let's say. So yeah, I think 2 years, but I'm at a good point right now. Like it's going forward.
Oh, that sounds lovely. So the Battle of Thermopylae, that's Such an interesting story. So how much do you like the 300 movie? It's like your favorite movie of all time?
No, like, I mean, my favorite movie of all time is Gladiator, but still,
Okay there. Okay.
still a 300. I mean, it's totally over the top. It's like silly. It's like, I mean, I still love it. It's cool. It's fun to watch. It's good popcorn cinema.
Oh yeah, you don't watch the 300 to see the historical accuracy. It's not a
Exactly.
documentary. It's like it's like an action movie where they do spins and they kill people with the 200 different ways. It's yeah, that's what
Yeah.
you see it for. And just to just see what's the actor's name? The
Gerard
protagonist.
Butler.
Oh yeah, Gerard Butler scream like this is Sparta to you and like kick people in the pit.
I mean,
So
there's a lot of real stuff in there, right? Like, it somehow is
is
quite
there?
well, like some. You have to be a bit more open-minded, I think.
I mean, yeah, Leonidas existed. Xerxes existed. The campaign to Greece happened.
You see.
So yeah, if you really try, you can find stuff to do. Anyway, enough about the 300. So what do you want to do? You said you were in the second year of your PhD, so you may not thought about it, but how do you see yourself like evolving in archaeology? Is this something you see yourself doing for the rest of your life?
I mean, definitely. I never felt like this fulfilled with any work I did, and I did quite many kind of jobs. Like my plan now is to finish this PhD as quick as possible, as fast as possible, but also in a proper manner, of course. And then I want to do some postdoc. I don't know yet where, but I feel very confident that I want to stay in academia. So it might be any university. Like there are some great universities for maritime archaeology, and also, for example, Trier in Germany. They have this Trans-MARE Center, and it's like they do great work there. It's amazing. Or I could also imagine working for the German Archaeological Institute. I was lucky enough to work there almost half a year in Spain, in Madrid, together with Maurice, actually. So thank you,
Hey, shout
Maurice,
out
for
to the first
opportunity.
episode. Yeah, if you
Uh,
haven't checked out the first episode, go do it now. You're like all the way through episode 6. What is it? Without seeing the first one? Shame. Anyway, yeah, continue.
exactly. I agree. So yeah, I want to do some postdoc. I want to write a habilitation. I hope that's also the word in English. Because I would like to have a professorship in the end. Maybe it won't work, who knows? But you should always have these goals in life that you are trying to achieve, because in my opinion, you should always aim for the best outcome.
Oh yeah,
This would be it.
absolutely.
So
Yes, of course. I mean, it's I would never, if someone asks me about advice for like a young person going into like, I don't know, work market, labor force, or going to study, I would be like, have goals, like work towards something. Working towards nothing is not going to like fuel you and push you forward and help you achieve those goals. But you seem really determined, and it's nice to see to stay in academia. So why do you like academia? Because I think 95% of the people I'm asking are like, oh, it's bad. It's bad. It's terrible. It's so competitive. Everybody's toxic. Because I've heard that a lot. That this is like a kind of motto for some people, that academia is toxic. Was academia toxic for you?
I wouldn't agree completely. I know what people are up to, what they mean. The thing is that the work conditions are sometimes a bit difficult in academia. I can mostly speak for Germany, right? Because I'm not that experienced with how it looks like in England or in Italy or wherever. But I think the community in academia, like, is not toxic. Like, as you know, with MARE, we have a big, let's call it MARE family, and the people are not toxic at all. Like, you meet these people on like conferences or in some country, and Like it's directly a connection there, and people are super friendly. And also, I don't know, I wrote to some people at some other university, asked them for literature, and they helped me, right? So it was, I think it's more and more open. Of course, there are some people who are a bit different always, right? But I think the academia itself is not toxic, but maybe the system is not perfect.
And by system, you mean? What kind of what system?
Well, first of all, that it's very difficult to get a job. Like the job market is very competitive, as you might know, because there are not as many jobs as there are archaeologists. So of course it's a very competitive field. Also, not everywhere the pay is, for example, appropriate. It's like real problems we have to address. And luckily, there are many people in higher positions who see the problems and try to do something about it. So thanks to all these people. Yeah, but I mean, to achieve, to pursue a career in academia can sometimes, of course, feel a bit ungrateful or like very difficult because of the job situation. You only have short contracts. You don't get paid enough or not as much as you think you deserve. The workload might be super much. Like archaeology is a lot of work. Yeah, these are all real problems. We shouldn't close our eyes. We should maybe more focus, if we can, to fight these problems together. And I see it in a lot of people. They are all agreeing, no matter the position. So I think in that sense, again, academia is not toxic because people try together to change something of these, of the system.
Oh yeah, and I think I can confirm what you're saying about people considering academics, the people who work, who are available 24/7, 365 days a year. And they think that anytime they feel like sending you an email and you're telling you to do something, you should be up for it because what's your job anyway? Well, other people will go to work at 9 and leave at 5 and then have 40 days of vacation. And then weekends, they're not even picking up the phone. In academia, it became kind of a standard. And as you said, it's super competitive, right? So we all trying to get ahead of the competition by working 24/7, 365 days a year to get ahead, to have that paper published, to attend that conference, to write that thesis, to do the work, to do better work, to do the work that other people won't do, and then go into talking about more PhDs. You see all PhDs trying to do a research that would absolutely break the legs of everybody else because it will be the most unique and novice and amazing research they could think of because they need to get ahead of the competition and get that one position that would open up some years later in that random antiquities department somewhere. And saying that, I think it's important to mention that, of course, you can do a career in archaeology without being an academic, right?
Sure. I mean, you can also work in companies like excavation companies. I mean, in England, it's a big thing as far as I know. Like there are many companies, but also, for example, in Western Germany we have it, or Northern Germany also. Not classical, but like provincial archaeology or prehistory. But yeah, you can also pursue a career like this, or you could go to a museum, work there. You could go work for the state, right, for cultural heritage. There are companies in general who love to employ people from social studies, like from cultural studies, to do research for them because they know that we learned how to do proper research and write articles, essays, reports. So if you're creative, there's a lot of possibilities to to earn money or to have some projects. I mean,
oh, absolutely. And I say that to people all the time, that the skills you acquire as an archaeologist, because that's what I know, right? I can't speak of all of humanities, but the skills you acquire as archaeologists are very transferable in some cases, especially in the fields of like being able to sort through endless data and write reports and do proper research, write even pieces for the news or magazines that are supported by evidence and it's not just random stories, fiction, or anything like that. So I think that's an important thing to mention. If somebody might be interested in joining the field of archaeology, and they're afraid that they would never find a job in archaeology, and I think it's realistic. It's a valid fear that you would never be able to work as an archaeologist. But I think that the skills you get will definitely move you into different fields.
Definitely. When I started studying, we were also told, be aware, it's very competitive, it's hard to find a job. Think about if you really want to dedicate years of your life to these studies for maybe not so good chances in the future. But as we just discussed, if you're creative, I mean, I heard about someone who is joining cruise vessels, and they go around the Mediterranean, and this person gives tours for the guests on board to archaeological sites. That's super crazy, super creative. I mean, the possibilities, they are there. You just have to, well, first of all, sometimes be lucky, but also to grab them and be ready to take a risk, but be prepared. It's not always easy. It can be difficult. You might have times where you think, I can't do that. But if you keep on going and you're like really, really stubborn, there's a good chance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So talking about getting ahead of the competition, I think it's proper that we talk a bit about MARE. Don't you think we should talk about MARE?
Yeah, sure.
So we've had the story of how MARE came to be. Maurice told us all about it. That's another callback to the first episode. If you haven't checked it out already, go do it now. About how MARE came to be and how you and him organized this conference that then it ended up not working out because of COVID, and then it started being an online lecture series, etc., etc., etc. The rest is history. That's a callback to another podcast, but that was an accident. Anyway, do you want to talk to us about your experience within MARE? And now you're in the verge of like leaving MARE behind and moving on to different things, even though nobody wants you to leave. Yeah, did I make that clear? How was your experience with MARE so far? And if you want to go a bit deeper, like what did MARE help you with in your life, in your career, and everything?
Well, MARE gave me a lot, I would say. Like, first of all, I got to meet all these amazing people, like online first, right? So the audience, the speakers, and from that, like contacts develop and also friendships. For example, Judith, like who joined us, became a really good friend. Like, I didn't know her before. I wouldn't have known her without MARE, let's say. And you also meet all these people on conferences, right? And they approach you and say, hey, aren't you the guys from Hamburg? Aren't you the MARE guys? And yeah, you feel like, oh, wow.
Celebrity status. What is this?
Yeah. So what I want to say with that is that MARE gave me a great chance to meet new people, to have contacts in maritime archaeology, to also then with them discuss my ideas, because they were on the, let's say, same level, maybe a bit further, maybe sometimes not, but still they gave me different input, a different view on things, and I could discuss it with them like on eye level. So that was something great. Also, it was it felt like very grateful work. Sometimes it was really a lot of work, but it felt so great when we had this lecture and there were like, I don't know, 30 people tuning in, sometimes over 50. And you think, wow, what we are doing here, well, people love it or people are interested. It's not in vain, right? It's something people accept, they want to see, and it just gave me like a really good feeling. It gave me also experience how to do something like that, how to organize a conference. And now we are like, as you know, working on a publication, and it gives me also that experience, like working on that. So yeah, it's just amazing that so many people gave us their trust and helped us with being there, like watching the lectures every first Monday of the month, by the way.
Plugging it in. There you go. That's how you do
Uh,
it.
yeah, I'm just super grateful for this experience and that we have such a great team, right? Like at first with Flo, Askia, and Maurice when we did the conference, then later Maurice, Judith, and me, and we could always rely on each other. Sometimes one person did more, sometimes the other. And now you joined, and I got to meet you, and you bring all these amazing new ideas, and it just makes me very happy to see that we somehow moved something. And like
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's like great feedback, and I think this experience we can use to get ahead maybe a bit of.
Of course, of course. First of all, we're turning from archaeologists to content creators, so that's something. There's a way out for us. We can be content creators and do podcasts for the rest of our lives. Which would be lovely, by the way. I would love be talking to people for the rest of my life. But I also love archaeology a lot. So I don't know if I would give that up just to talk to people. I'll maybe do both. But can you talk to us, do you think, a bit about the publication, or is it like super secret? We can't talk about the experience of, because I think most of the people listening, me included, we don't know what it's like to edit conference proceedings. That's what it is, right? Conference proceedings.
Yeah, you could say that. It's like I mean, it was made public, right? We were giving out a call for that. Like so we are publishing the proceedings of the MARE lecture. And we have we have great articles, like the people who contributed, amazing. And yeah, like what we are doing, we try to do the editorial work all on our own, or most of the parts on our own. So first of all, we check the articles, we read through them. Are they written according to the manual that we got from the publisher? Is the literature correct? Is the bibliography correct? Like according to the manual of style again. And we do that all in our free time. So you have your normal workload, you have like university, maybe a job, and to do this on the side in your free time as fun activity. But to me, it gave me like really good experience. I mean, I worked in the German Institute, also in the editorial office, and I was working according to the guidelines of the institute. And now I have to use a different one, like more international. And to me, it's great because now I learn a different system. I get more experience in that. But yeah, like what is it like to work on that? It's a lot of work, but again, it's very grateful work because we see how much work all the authors put into it. And it's great. We're very grateful for that, for this chance to publish together with them.
Oh yeah. And can you talk to us about how did you manage like landing a publisher to do that? Because I'd imagine that would be difficult, or not. I don't know, so that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, like we found quite quickly a solution. So we wrote to people. We asked if it's possible at all to do a publication, and how would the costs look like, and would they be open to publish with us? And quite quickly we found a publisher, and we were having a meeting first of all. And there we discussed what is our idea, what do we want to publish. And then the publisher told us, okay, so it would look like this. You have to use this manual of style. We would like you to publish in this series. What is your timetable? What's your schedule? So, like, it wasn't super difficult, I would say, to get a publisher. But you have to know who you are talking to or who you can talk to. And I think it was Judith if I remember correctly, who proposed this publisher first. But I'm not completely sure. Maybe it was also Maurice. Yeah, but
No, yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's good to see that people are interested in publishing stuff, you know. And as one of the aims of this project is to give a platform to early career researchers to kind of showcase their work. And it's nice to see that publishers would showcase your work, would accept a publication edited by PhD students. And it's okay. And you can definitely do that. And maybe some PhD student out there is afraid to do it, or doesn't want to do it, or is not sure if they can do it. And the answer is you can. You just need a lot of work, maybe a couple of friends, so you can share the workload and not do it by yourself.
exactly.
Amazing. So you stayed in Hamburg for most of your life to do your studies. But as you mentioned, to find work in archaeology, you need to move a lot. So how far are you willing to move for archaeology?
Well, I'm quite willing. I mean, I went to Madrid, which is quite far from Hamburg. So it's on the other side of Europe almost. So I'm quite open to that. I went during my studies to Palermo to study. After my master's, I went for half a year to Rome to prepare for my PhD. I'm on excavations, or when you're working in projects, you also go far away. I was working in Miletus, in Paphos, also again like very far away. And I think that's the beautiful thing about archaeology. You get to see all these places. You get to eat the food, experience the weather, the people. It's just, to me, it's not a sacrifice to move to other places to work there, because it gives you a lot. It helps you get new ideas. It makes you feel different things. It just opens your mind. So I'm very willing to.
Okay, sure, but okay, let me be the devil's advocate here.
Yes.
So what if tomorrow, in 2 years, in 1.5 years, you get an offer, right? It's a postdoc position, 5 years, you do whatever the hell you want with your research, and it's in New York. Would you go?
Well, why wouldn't I? It sounds amazing.
Of course, it sounds amazing, but where I'm trying to get at is another hot topic, I would say, that people tell me when I talk about archaeology and life in academia. They say that you will never be able to have a family of your own with that career path. Do you feel the same? Do you feel like you would never be able to have a family because, you know, I'll be moving every 3 years, I'm busy, I don't have the money. So do you feel like this is a path that you can have a family before you're like 35 or 40 or something?
Well, I am 35, but anyway. No, don't worry.
I wasn't directly implying to your age. It was a random guess.
Oh, perfect. No, don't worry. Well, I wouldn't agree. I think first of all, yes, our job is very difficult when it comes to managing a family, to manage relationships, which very often can be long distance relationships. And it's very hard for many people to do that. And yeah, it's kind of also an egoistic, somehow, job choice, let's say. I mean, when I finished school and I thought about what to do with my life, I was thinking about studying nautics, like my father, who is a captain. And, you know, I saw how that worked, and I thought, oh no, I wouldn't do that. I couldn't have a family like this and so on.
You went into archaeology.
So, you know, I mean, with that, you're not home very often and stuff like that. And in archaeology, it's very similar. So in some sense, yes, it can be difficult to manage relationship and family. On the other hand, I think it's still possible. But you have to be willing to make compromise. Not only your partner, also you. So you can't just say, oh, I got this job opportunity in, I don't know, Porto. I will go there. And then your partner's like, yeah, what should I do? Right? You have to talk about it. And if you find a solution and you talk about it in a proper way, I think it's all manageable. It depends on the people. There's no easy answer to that. It really depends on the people. So
Oh
I would
yeah,
say it's
it does.
possible. It's possible. So
I want to think that it's possible, of course. Me and you both really like being delusional here, telling everyone that it's possible. No, it's really possible. We're not being completely delusional, but it's true that you need to make sacrifices. And if, for example, as you said, opportunity arose in New York, you don't just accept and live and
Yeah.
off to New York to do stuff. Even though it sounds, as you said, oh yeah, it sounds amazing. I will go tomorrow. I'll pack my bags right away and leave, and I go to New York to do that. But if you have like a partner, then even if you don't have a family, I feel if you have like a partner that you've been with for some time, or you see a future with them and you want to do it, you need to kind of take a step back. And I know that we said that job opportunities are few. So someone will tell me, so decide what you want to do. Do you want to choose where you want to work, or you don't have enough job opportunities? Like, what are you talking about?
yes, exactly. I really see what you're saying.
But it's an adventure, right? You finish your PhD and you'll see. Excellent. So saying all that, I think this episode has took a kind of vibe of, is it worth it to study archaeology? Is it not worth it? So I need to address it as, imagine that I don't know, a student, a teenager comes to you and it's like, I want to study archaeology. I'm thinking about doing it, but I'm not sure if I can, or if I'm ready, or if I'm capable of doing it. How would you describe to them life as an archaeologist and what you need to do to be an archaeologist?
Well, first of all, you have to be a person who works hard, who is willing to work in conditions which are not always the best. You have to be able to work with stress. Like, you also have to see that during your studies, you will go abroad for a few weeks and you won't get paid. You just do it. And then you work like 10 hours a day and also on Saturday and so on. Like, there are some very bad things, I would say, about archaeology. But in the end, we always go again because we love it. We love what we are doing. We love these opportunities to do that. And I would also tell them that be prepared. Job chances are not great, but if you're willing to sacrifice a lot, if you can manage that, like, mentally also, right? It's not only like the physical aspect, because you also have to be quite fit for some things. It's also the mental component. Be prepared that you will have phases of being down, you don't know how to proceed, you don't get funding for your PhD or whatever, and you feel like, what should I do? Don't worry. If you're dedicated, if you find solutions to get some money here, to get some money there, to work in some project, if you're stubborn, if you are trying to get into a project, like write to this one person and to the next one, it will eventually work. You will find something, you will make your way if you keep on going. Like, don't let other people tell you that you can't do it, maybe because you're not at the first glance the most serious person or the most intelligent person, or they think that, because you are a very nice person, you are weak, or stuff. Don't listen to all that stuff. Just go on. So if you are, after that speech, not demotivated, archaeology is the thing for you.
Amazing. This I will cut this part and send it to every like University of Archaeology in the world and tell them, play this for your students. And you see your numbers rising every year. But you are, of course, jokes aside, absolutely right. It's archaeology is a story about dedication and opportunities and sacrificing. Sadly, it's sacrificing. You sacrifice hours and hours and hours of your life to go through, I don't know, 25 excavation reports to find that one ceramic that you're interested, or you will like sacrifice that one night out because you are so tired of everything you need to lay down. And I, from me personally, my undergraduate years would go like semester, excavation, other semester, Christmas holidays, other semester, project. And I remember right before I started my master's, I said no to a project like a month before leaving to start my master's, and that was the most exhausting month of my life because I did nothing for a month. And for the past like 4 years, except the COVID one, I would completely like June came and I would be lost. I would be somewhere doing something, excavating, surveying, seeing, studying. And I think that takes sacrifice. You sacrifice vacation time, you sacrifice personal time, you sacrifice even time with your friends and your loved ones and your family. And it is at the end of it a story about sacrifice. And you need to sacrifice. So you're absolutely right, and thank you for sharing that. Do you maybe have any closing remarks before we wrap up this episode?
Any closing remarks? I think what I would give also to students, like broaden your horizon when you study archaeology. Don't only look at one thing. Don't do only statues. Don't do only that. Don't do only that. Broaden your view, and you will have an advantage in your studies and after your studies. Take as many projects as you can. You will suffer a lot, but it's totally worth it, and we love it.
Absolutely. And maybe I should add that the greatest love stories happen inside trenches. That's it. I said it. You do whatever you want with it. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the MARE Podcast. See you in 2 weeks with another episode. Be there, right? Bye.